Welcome everyone, both in the room and online. Very happy to be here at Stockholm World Water Week at the end of the day. So I hope you are excited to be here. So today, disasters cost us around $202 million annually. But when we account for cascading effects and ecosystem impacts, that number skyrockets to $2.3 trillion. And of course, these are not just numbers. They represent lives disrupted, livelihoods lost, and development stalled. But here's the good news. Every dollar invested in early warning can save up to $16 in avoided losses. And flood early warning systems are among the most effective. So these investments, they save lives, protect livelihoods, and unlock development potential. So that's exactly what we're going to talk here about today. Together with you in the room here today and online as well, we explore different perspectives on flood early warning and discuss how we can make them more inclusive, more sustainable, more effective. This will be a very interactive session, I hope, and your input really matters to us. So you can keep your laptops out to add your input to the Mentimeter later, but please put your mobile phone on silent mode. Thank you. So we have a very full program with 7 experts, each bringing insights from policy, practice, community experience. Let's see. So I'm excited to be joined later in the session by Martijn Kwant, who will be moderating the online discussions. So he will join in later today. And Martijn is a flood early warning expert working at Deltares. So before we dive in and begin with this session, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Liesbeth Wilschut. I work at the Blue Deal program, which is a program working in 15 countries, capacity strengthening program, peer-to-peer, working on IWRM and water governance. So to open this important conversation on flood early warning, I'm delighted to welcome our first speaker. She is a diplomat and foreign policy professional with over 20 years of experience at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands. She was deputy head of the climate team and deputy head of the Netherlands delegation to the UN climate change negotiations. Since the summer of 2023, she is the head of the water team at the Department of Inclusive Green Growth. Please welcome Eva Schreuder. So, welcome Eva. Very nice to have you here on stage. So, I wanted to ask you, before we zoom into flood early warning, let's take a step back. And can you explain us why disaster risk reduction is so essential in today's world?
I think I see the people here, I don't see the people online. I think it's also good to really start with what is disaster risk reduction actually? What do we mean? And I think, so that we all start from the same agenda, it's really taking all the necessary steps to reduce the damage caused by natural disasters, as you explained. Floods, droughts, earthquakes. And what is important, that we really understand the risks, that we're prepared, that we protect people, as you said, and that we respond. So that is the context, I think, of today's conversation. And why it's important, I think already you mentioned some figures on the screen. Well, both the number and intensity of the disasters, they are increasing. And I think being prepared, like I just said, is essential. It also reduces cost. and it helps community to recover faster after a disaster if you're prepared. And I think without scaling up the investments in a disaster risk reduction, and that's also coming from the Foreign Office, we really risk that the achievements of reaching the SDGs are out of sight. I think it's a huge waste of all of our efforts, money, not to invest in disaster risk reduction now. And it's not only a matter of a concern of us, I think it's a concern of everybody here in the room and online as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The SDGs, they do get out of reach if we don't act. So let's talk a bit about the donor landscape and the changes in that. So as this is shifting, the budgets for ODA are tightening, what role do you believe donors could play in disaster risk reduction or flood early warning?
Well, it's a fact. Scaling up investments is difficult, and especially in today's, well, from a donor perspective, in today's global landscape. So it sounds a bit like we've said it before, but I want to say it again. I mean, we need to be creative, and we really need to use all the budget lines available and bring partners together to see if we can scale the investments. And maybe just to mention one example that is familiar to some of you in the room is a consortium that the Netherlands has set up together with different partners like WMO, UNDRR, IFRC and the Red Cross, and it's called Water at the Heart of Climate Action. I think the original name for the program was From Satellite to Sandbag, and that's actually explaining even better what the program does. It's a program in 5 African countries that we really try to help vulnerable communities to reduce risks, also through better data collection and involve the local community. So when I say we must be creative and bring partners together, I think this is an example of how we, as a donor, try to do that. And I think maybe the second point in answer to your question is that we must use also these instruments to involve the financiers, businesses, and join us in this effort. And that also requires that we have the right incentives in place, the platforms in place. Yeah, I can say more about that, but I won't.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you mentioned data, and we're going to talk about that a lot in this session, but scaling up is really something we should talk about today as well. So it's a very good point. So let me ask you the final question, which is, so this year in Stockholm, as we all know, the theme is Water for Climate Action, with a focus on accelerating solutions. So I'm very curious to hear, what do you think is already going well when it comes to flood early warning? You just mentioned climate at the heart. So, and where do you think we still need to step up our efforts?
What I think is going well, but I think colleagues in the rooms are perhaps a better place to answer that question, is that there are more systems in place. I also believe that the global cooperation on disaster risk reduction has improved. For example, do the Sendai framework. And I also think, but please, in the discussion, that when developing infrastructure, taking this lens of disaster risk reduction, has been taken on board better over the last year. So that's the good part. Now you're probably going to ask about that. What's not going well?
Yeah, please let us know.
Yeah, I think what is not going well is that early warning is sort of seen as a public good, and the private sector is actually benefiting from that service. And I don't know how to do it, but it's important that we really increase awareness, understanding how there are also many commercial interests in disaster risk reduction. And then find models to also for propositions for investment. So I think that's as a first point. And I think last point, important to us in development cooperation in general is how do we really include local communities, governments at the local level in all the efforts that we undertake. And I think there are many lessons to be learned there as well. So maybe these 2 points.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's a very important point. Of course, the points you raised of involving communities, we will be talking a lot about that later, but also your point that it can be commercially very interesting to invest. So I think that is a very useful point. Thank you for that. And I think you have to run to...
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, so I really want to thank you for sharing your insights, and please give a warm applause to Eva.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy your session.
So that was a very interesting interview, but of course now we also want to know, hear from you. So I'm very curious, who is in the room? So let's take a moment for that. Turn to your neighbor if you are on site and just share where are you from which organization are you working. And I think in a moment, if you can join with your mobile phone or with your laptop, if that is possible. And then in a moment, we will see the Mentimeter, I think, on the screen. So let's see who is in the room. And please, take a moment to share with your neighbor and to meet each other. So I'm glad everyone is getting introduced, and that's also the purpose of this session, to really exchange. And I'm happy to see we are joined by quite a variation, people from different countries, Africa, so that is good. And I think there's even a next slide of Mentimeter, maybe we can put it also up, because it's about where are you working, from which perspective are you joining this session. We plan to have many experts from different perspectives, but I'm curious who is in this room. So we have quite a few NGOs, knowledge institutes. I'm very happy that there are also several water authorities present. So I think we have I would say we have a good variation. So that's very nice. So now, let's continue with our pitches of the experts. Yeah, we have the right one on the screen. So we are very fortunate today to be joined by 5 experts who will each start with a short pitch. And you can see them here on the screen. So we have from the different perspective. So we have someone from the water authorities in Ghana. We have TAHMO. We have the World Meteorological Organization. We have a consultant from HKV. And we have the Netherlands Red Cross. So we have a big variety, and together they will bring hopefully a wide wide perspective. And after their pitches, we'll keep it interactive. So, yeah, be prepared. So, before we go to this first pitch, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the next question, which is, what do you think are the most urgent issues to solve in flood early warning or early warning systems? So please enter this in the Mentimeter and also the people online. And then we can also welcome our online moderator, Martijn, who is joining here from Delft. So let's see if we can, yeah, there he is. Welcome, Martijn, to the conversation.
Hi there.
And what's the weather over there?
It's gray, a bit cloudy, but still quite warm, so not too bad.
Okay, so not so different from Stockholm then. So we're going to talk about this question, the most urgent issues in flood early warning systems. So it would be handy to have also some results on the screen. I don't know if that's possible, but do you see the results as well? Yeah, perfect. Oh, a lot of answers. So what do you think, Martijn? What do you make of this? Are these also, in your view, the most urgent issues?
Yeah, we're seeing some very interesting comments. I think the one to ensure that technology is adapted to the local context, that's definitely an issue. I mean, early warning systems need to be built up using local systems, not internationally. I see maintenance, coordination, finance, I think all very valid points, which I think we will also address during this session. So,
yeah. So, is there something that we will not address? Is there something new that we missed, maybe? Let's see.
Yeah, communication of data to citizens. That's definitely one. I'm not sure we are covering that, but that's, I think, crucial. Awareness, that's definitely a valid point. I mean, you can have the most state-of-the-art early warning system, but if people are not aware that it exists, then most likely you won't reach the most vulnerable ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think thank you very much for all these inputs. And after this session, we will also share our insights, what the takeaways, what we got on LinkedIn. So we will take all these answers along with us. So I think then now we can go to the first expert we have in the room. So we will start with the perspective of a regional water authority. So please welcome Mr. James Agri. He is a senior officer at the Water Management Directorate of the Water Resource Commission in Ghana and was involved in the development of flood and drought early warning systems. Welcome.
Thank you and good afternoon. I have a difficult task to begin this pitch, and I'm sure the presenters who may come after me will pick some slots. So you don't worry, I'm sure everything would be fine. So a little bit of introduction. My name is James Agri. I am with the Water Resources Commission of Ghana. That is the body responsible for management of water. And I work also with the Blue Deal, the partnership that Liesbeth talked about in her first sentence, and I'm the coordinator for the Ghana project. So please bear with me as I take you through. I only have 2 slides, so it shouldn't be lengthy, and you should enjoy. Thank you. So a little of a background. The Water Resources Commission is set up by the government of Ghana and is in charge of managing and regulating the utilization of water resources. So every water in the country belongs to the president, but has given that to the Water Resources Commission to regulate. And the Water Commission also does the coordination of all projects, all policies in relation to the management of water, and as well advises government on the use of water. it's interesting that the Ghana also shares boundaries with some countries and share basins as well. So the Commission is in charge of the transboundary issues of all water resources in the country. So the main key things, they have a mandate, they do the coordination, and they handle also transboundary issues. So I picked this important image from Fernandez and with his other colleagues, and it gives a diagrammatic view of how early warning systems are developed. So I just want to pinpoint the areas where I think the involvement of the managers of the resources are important in this whole system. So we have the flood risk, the knowledge that is first of all generated, moving on to the detection, the monitoring, the forecasting, and then the warning and the dissemination, how it is communicated to the last person, and then the response and the preparedness. And I want to do this with the example of the early warning system that has been developed for both the White Volta Basin and the Oti Basin, which are two basins in Ghana. One was developed somewhere in 2011, and the other was somewhere around 2016. And they have been operational for some time now, but they are off and trying to be brought back to life. So in this quest, where does the regulator come in? And that is the first section that we pick, the information on the flood hazards, as well as the vulnerabilities in the community. So there is an importance to understand what are the vulnerabilities and where are they. And this because the commission or the regulator is in charge of developing an IWRM plan that helps with the management of the water resources. We are able to streamline and know in this basin who are the more vulnerable people and who do we need to pay attention to in terms of identifying their risk levels. So that is one aspect that the regulator can do. Then looking at the second thing is the systematic collection of the information. Should this information be, if it is not kept on the systematic level, then we tend to lose some gaps in the data. That is why a lot of the situations you have data that is not able to feed into the system to produce the results that you need. So you have a lot of data gaps. And this is because the systematic approach is not addressed. Then the third aspect is the evaluation of the population. So at every point in time, you know the number of people who are within the basin and how the dynamics are changing. So in the development of the plan, we bear in mind the population growth rates that would help you to understand how the population dynamics are changing within the basin. And then the last aspect is the development of the hazard map. So as part of the project, we were able to have these maps developed and disseminated to the district assemblies within the various district localities within the basin. So they all have an idea of where are the risk zones, where are the red demarcated areas, where are the yellow places, what can we do to help ourselves in case there is any form of flood. Then the second aspect, which comes to the dissemination of information, is also critical as a role that the regulator plays. The regulator is meant to do the coordination. So we have other players also in the development of the early warning system, but there is the need to coordinate all these aspects, and there is a need to also give back information to the local communities. So the regulator is able to bring together all the bodies together to understand the creation of the system so that we carry them along throughout the process. And that is what we did during the creation of the early warning system, the OT and the lower and the White Volta Basin. We were able to bring all the parties, including the meteorological, the hydrological, the community levels. We did this sensitization to get them into the picture. So it is important that every stakeholder is brought into the creation of the early warning system because they have some knowledge. But one aspect we tend not to bring on board so early in the system is the indigenous knowledge aspect. And as part of this week's talks and every other thing, you still hear the part that the indigenous people would have to play. So I think that is a missing link that we may need to also bring in. And then if you are able to have a clear definition of the terminologies, nobody would be confused. So it is important that we carry along everybody in the creation of these early warning systems in order to solve the real problems and reduce the number of the figures that we saw in the first section. So thank you very much, and this is the role I think the Water Resources Commission, the regulator, plays in early warning systems. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great. And please stay on the stage, because we are very curious. What questions do you have for James? I think it was a very insightful presentation on the importance of good stakeholder engagement, getting all the stakeholders at the table. But please ask your questions. Also, the many people online, ask your questions to James. And then let's see what people are asking. So let's take a moment. And then also we again get the help from Martijn. So that is great. Everybody's typing, so let's wait. So what do you think in the meantime then, James? What do you think, what is the importance of the water authority? What let's say the water authority is left out of this early warning? It's just the meteorological organization, some communities, but the water authority is not in the discussion. What will fail?
I think it would be a very big error if the water authority is not in the picture, because the authority has a general understanding of the impact of some solutions and their ripple effect on other areas. So they have a clear understanding of the whole basin where operations are taking place. So if they are not brought into the picture, the Meteo and the other local communities may have an intention of doing good, of implementing something, but the ripple effect would be out of the picture. So because the regional authorities or the national authorities have a clear understanding of the whole basin, it is important that they are brought into the discussion from the early stage.
Yeah, very insightful. So we can have Martijn up here as well, but there's one question already, James. So how do you ensure that the cooperation with the Meteorological Institute is working well?
I think for the government setting, it is mostly the Meteo is a government institution and the water resource is also a government institution. So exchange of data and other things should easily come by. But when there are difficulties, then there is a need to establish an MOU to ensure that exchange of information is easily done. So I think if it is difficult in any country trying to establish a cordial relationship between these two organizations, then there's a need to put together an MOU where everybody understands what the details of the job requires, and you can easily exchange information in the development of the early warning system.
Yes, yeah, very clear. So Martijn, what did you saw coming up? What kind of questions? And you might have questions of yourself.
Yeah, I see a question on how far we are able to warn citizens with the current systems in place. Can you comment on that, James?
Can you come again?
How far in advance we are able to warn citizens?
It's now in the Ghanaian context, there is the development of an app by the GMET where they can warn citizens. They give citizens the forecast for the day. And when there are any warning situations, then you are able to also give the warning messages. So it can come close to probably 30 minutes before the incident happens, the daily forecast or the weekly forecast. And there are also the seasonal forecasts that are generated at the beginning of the year. So you have one for the dry season, one for the wet season. But in any case, the individuals, the citizens, are informed ahead of the time. And this is based on the results that are generated from the early warning systems. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Another question, perhaps? I think we have some time.
Okay, so another question from the online audience is, what challenges do you see in terms of policy and regulations of early warning systems?
Yeah, I think this is a very big area that is not well understood yet, the part that each institution or organization needs to play. So there is the need for that collaboration with all the institutions to really come up with a policy, because the policy, I may say, is not non-existent for some areas, because there was the development of the a document by GMET that addresses services, weather services, and temperature services, and other things, but it's not ingrained into the daily operations of all the other institutions. So it's important that the institutions come together to develop a policy that addresses early warning systems so that everybody understands what is going on in that area.
Okay, thank you. I think very clear. So please give a warm applause to James.
Thank you.
And then we will go to the next pitch, which is from TAHMO. We're going to hear from Mr. Frank Anor. He is the CEO of TAHMO, a lecturer at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana, and a researcher at the Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. So, very busy man. Eh? His research work includes hydrometeorological modeling and institutional arrangements for water governance, covering agriculture and early warning systems for drought and floods. Welcome.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon all. It's nice to have you in the room, and also those online. One of the issues that came up as we're looking at what we really do with flood early warning systems was the issue of maintenance. So we see that maintenance is really an issue. Often we have funding to set up systems, but after projects end, there are no funds to maintain the very same systems that we were so much dying for. So what is the problem? And how can we resolve that? I hope that we can leave this room with some ideas. We may not be able to completely resolve it all, but at least we can make some steps towards doing this. One of the things we've been talking about is really inverting the process, looking at what capacities exist in terms of resources. Here we're looking at human resources, financial resources, and then setting up systems that can be sustained beyond the project. Because when there's a lot of resources and you ask me what I want, I'll tell you that probably I need a Mercedes-Benz, but maybe a Toyota Yaris could be an excellent option as well. But often we don't think beyond that process. And I think a lot of us all have roles to play in this. When we talk about maintenance of a flood early warning system, we are looking at all the components of the flood early warning system, where we start with the monitoring, of course, the modeling and the forecasting. That is also really critical. But most importantly, the communication. And how do we ensure that the message reaches the people at the last mile, and the message are tuned in a way that they can understand this in their own dialects or infographics that they can relate to. You know, these are important. If the project ends, we have to know that the communication still should be going on. And how do we maintain this? So we build what we call modular systems. And so I show a modular system of how you could use multiple sources of data, but also various processes to ensure that we can get early warning systems going. There are many challenges that are associated with flood early warning systems. I've already talked about the funding gaps, especially when project ends, but also there are problems with spare parts, especially we bring equipment that you cannot easily get the parts locally when there's a problem. But also we have systems that cannot easily be updated, and sometimes just a security certificate has to be renewed, but there's nobody to renew that certificate, and therefore a very fully functional website or system is no longer working. All these gaps create a lot of inconsistencies in flood early warning systems. My colleague from Ghana talked about data gaps. You know, when there's no money to even top up SIM cards to make sure that there's data on the instruments to send the data for us to either validate or even assimilate for our early warning system, this is quite problematic. And these are some of the issues that we have to think about. Despite this, there are some very nice successes that we can build on. For example, institutions coming up with annual plans that are embedded in their own way of doing things on a daily basis. We having systems that are built that have very low moving parts or parts that can easily be acquired within the localities or within countries, and actually also finding ways to have non-contact equipments being set up to reduce the requirement for maintenance and issues of redundancy in setting up systems. These are some of the things that we are doing to address some of the challenges that we have in flight early warning systems and their maintenance. I'll stop here and then open the floor for any questions that you may have.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think it's a very important point you addressed with the failing systems, because it happens a lot. So now we have for you a multiple choice question, so it's a little bit easier to answer in the Mentimeter and with your phone. So let's give you a moment to add what you think is most vulnerable to failure in flood early warning process. So let's see what comes up. And then maybe we can also add Martijn again to the, because he's following everything very accurately. Yeah, there he is. Welcome again, Martijn.
Yes. Hey there.
My partner in crime.
Yes, I cannot see you, but it feels like I'm there with you.
For sure, for sure.
So we're getting some interesting responses. I see a lot of people voting on lack of funding. It is clear that we do understand the risks. We are aware of the risks, so not a lot of people voting on that. Apart from that, quite evenly distributed. Field equipment, definitely important. Also, electricity not working. This is something that we've seen also working abroad. Is that often you see that big rainfall events, they might trigger flooding, and then the electricity company turns off the power to certain areas to minimize the risk of electrocution. But as a side effect, it might also turn off the electricity just at the location where the server is hosting your early warning system. Yeah. Staff changes, definitely important.
So maybe that's something to ask you, Frank. So do you see that this as well, a lot, the changing of the staff? Is that a large problem in Ghana, for example? Yeah. Yeah, like brain drain, staff leaving, and you just have everybody are trained, and then people move to other jobs.
Yeah, so staff turnover is really one of the issues that we have in maintaining early warning systems, because often what you also need are people with very good IT skills, and these people are hotcakes, especially for the banks and other sectors. And often you train people, and then you see that, they are taken away by these institutions who give them better offer. I don't blame them. But one way to address that is also working very well with the research institutions and the universities, where you can have some core group trained, so that at least there's always people that can really support the maintenance of systems. So it's a big problem, but I think we can have a solution when we work very well with the universities and the research institutions.
Yeah, I think that's an inspiring solution. So I really want to thank you. Please give him a warm applause. And so now we're going to hear from the next speaker, who is online joining, and we really want to make this a very inclusive session. So that's why we have this mix. So let's see if we can have Ramesh Tripathi join. Ramesh has been serving as a project officer in the hydrology and Water Resources Division of the World Meteorological Organization for over 8 years. His primary responsibilities include the development and management of projects related to early warning for floods and droughts. So please welcome Ramesh. So Ramesh.
Hi, Liesbeth. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. So how's the weather? You are in Geneva, right?
In the morning it was gray, but now we can see the sun. So quite good to go out and maybe take a beer and enjoy. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds wonderful, and I think the whole room is looking forward to that beer. But first, we have some work to do. So Ramesh is really going to explain about the transboundary aspect. So the floor is yours, Ramesh.
Yeah, thank you, Liesbeth. And firstly, thank you for the opportunity for allowing WMO to share experiences on transboundary cooperation for flood early warning system. Before we go on the next slide, just to share, WMO is leading the pillar 2 of early warning system under the Early Warning for All initiative, where we want to ensure everyone on this planet is covered or protected by early warning system. And for that, we did a survey in 2024 with our 193 member countries. And what we came to know that only or around 50% of the country reported to have multi-hazard early warning system for hydromet hazards. So this is a bit of concern considering, there are growing numbers of hydrometeorological events, especially floods, and not having a good and accurate early warning system creates a lot of challenge in terms of saving lives, properties, as well as livelihood. In terms of transboundary side, I think based on UN water stats, there are more than 100 transboundary basins, and only 51 or 50% of them have reported to have early warning system. So WMO is very keen in working on transboundary basins in terms of strengthening flood early warning system. So maybe next slide, please. Here, I want to share some of the WMO projects, especially the two ones which are more on transboundary side. On the left side is the one of Volt Alarm early warning system that we have developed in last 5 years. And this is an operational flood early warning system, impact-based flood early warning system that is being used by the 6 countries of West Africa, including Ghana. The overall idea when we started this project, which was a Volta flood and drought management project, the idea was that to ensure there is a transboundary early warning system for both floods and drought, because that was a key issue identified in the initial assessment that we carried out. Why I'm saying key issue? What was happening that in case of say at the border of Burkina, there were some dams and they were releasing out water without informing at the Ghana side, and there were some flooding issues. There were many other issues that were identified, and the goal was to ensure that by the end of the project we have a transboundary early warning system where the countries can come together, look into different monitoring products, and then take a decision in terms of issuing a warning bulletin. You can see at the end of the project, almost 50 plus warning bulletins have been disseminated for flood event, and that is shared on the bottom corner. You can see 6 countries, hydromet agencies, they come together on 2 times in a week, and they look into different products that has been developed, different model outputs, and then give out their advisory or warning messages, and this is being disseminated to various stakeholders at national level as well as at local level. This is the project that has been completed last year, but on the right side is the Nile Basin early warning system that we are started to develop under the Water at Heart of Climate Action project funded by Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Netherlands, and supported by partners like UNDRR, IFRC, Netherlands Red Cross, and many others contributing technically. And here the concern is same. I think Nile Basin is one of the longest, I mean, Nile River is one of the longest river in the world, and the goal is to ensure that we develop a transboundary flood early warning system. But here in this case, I think in Nile side we have identified there are more than 20 systems that are already available at national level, regional level, at local level, and our goal here is not to bring something new, rather to make sure that we build upon what is already there, integrating and bringing them together, making sure the countries benefit from multi-model system or a system that is using different products at larger scale or at different scale. Next slide. I think this experience of transboundary flood early warning system, there are a few things that we wanted to highlight. I think one of the key thing what we have experienced is data sharing of weather and water related within the country as well as transboundary level are very key for flood early warning system. And in our experience, we have seen that various stakeholders, the basin authorities, the water resources agencies, even hydromet, for them water data is very sensitive. So what we have done as a solution, rather than asking them to share raw data, we have approached them to make sure they share the products, meaning the process data or the information that can be on a scale of 1 day, last 3 days, or maybe for upcoming 3 days. So these are quite easy for the agencies or regional authorities to share. So this is an approach that we are doing. And at national level, especially in terms of example of Ghana, we were knowing that there are data available, hydrological data available with Ghana Hydrological Authority, meteorology with Ghana Meteorological Agency, and water resources or groundwater related information with Water Resource Commission. So what we done is we have signed a joint MOU between 3 entities so that we can form a centralized database that can be connected for real-time monitoring of floods events. So this is something has been signed and being used in terms of ensuring that within the country there is a good collaboration. And just to highlight, I think sharing knowledge and expertise between countries are key and essential. Giving the example of Volta Basin or Nile Basin, considering the situations are similar in these countries, and when you bring the hydromet people, disaster management together, they learn, they share knowledges, their experience, and that can help in future collaboration or coordination in terms of monitoring, forecasting, as well as disseminating warning from transboundary to national to local level. One of the other initiative we have is of SOF, which is Systematic Observation Financing Facility, that is supporting the meteorological observation. And the overall goal is, once this meteorological stations that has been established or has been rehabilitated, these stations provide data directly to global entities like ECMWF, and in turn these ECMWF products are available for free for use to the country. So in a way it's a win-win situation. So it's very important that whenever we do a project, we don't just ask something, but in order also to make sure that we give back, and that is how it's a win-win situation. So I'll stop here, but happy to hear in case there are any questions. Thank you.
Very interesting to hear. I think also the importance of transboundary flood early warning systems and transboundary cooperation in this, because of course the rivers are not just tied to the country. So please, everybody, we have this question for Ramesh as well, to reflect on: what do you think the biggest barriers are for effective transboundary flood early warning systems? And then we can have maybe even both Ramesh and Martijn on the screen, and then we're really globally represented. But let's see if Martijn is also joining. And let's give people a bit of time to answer the question of the biggest barriers. Yes, here we are. Martijn, over to you.
Let me see if I can see. It's a bit smaller on my screen. I see trust. I think that's definitely an important one. I mean, cooperation needs to be there between organizations. Communication, definitely important. Yeah, this is another interesting one. I think conflicting policies between upstream and downstream countries. It's something that we noticed as well. I mean, an upstream country could construct a very large dam, which then influences downstream communities or countries. I know, Ramesh, do you see other interesting points?
Thanks, Martin. I think, yeah, I see a lot of comments or messages highlighting data sharing, I think, or data exchanges. And as I said, data is a bit sensitive when it comes on water or transboundary water related. And this is why we wanted to always inform countries that we are doing in a bottom-up approach, meaning that whatever we develop at country level, we bring that towards the transboundary or regional level. And this is something we need to make them understand that keeping data with them will be of no use unless it is being used for developing some products or some kind of tool that can help them to see what is the current situation, what has been the situation in last few days, and what is going to be the situation in coming days. These are very important in terms of timely monitoring and forecasting of any kind of hydrometeorological hazard. And I think other things are in terms of policies and in terms of plans and all. This is something I think projects are trying to do, is to ensure that they bring people on or stakeholders on the same table and make them understand and ensure that there are some key transboundary policies, including how operationally or how standard operating procedures should follow in terms of joint monitoring, forecasting, and early warning services. So this is something just to add from my side, looking at the comments. Yeah.
Thank you, Ramesh. I think this is a very valuable point, the policies for transboundary cooperation. So please give a warm applause to Ramesh. And then we'll go to our next speaker and movie. We're switching it up a bit. So our next expert is a water and climate consultant at HKV in the Netherlands. She is specialized in urban floods, flood early warning systems, and extreme rainfall. Please welcome Doreen.
Thank you, nice being here. I was just sitting in the back of the room and I just want to say that this technician that is mixing up all the screens on request with sometimes 3-4 screens in together is really doing a great job. So that's... yes, improving collaboration. I think by now it is clear that we need collaboration, transboundary collaboration and also between institutions. So I had prepared a few words for that, but I will keep it short. As Ramesh already mentioned, the early warning for all ambition has 4 pillars: risk knowledge, monitoring and forecasting, warning dissemination and communication, and response and preparedness. Well, the difficulty with that is that it brings in different expertises: meteorology, hydrology, disaster risk management, and sometimes even public-private sector, research institutes and NGOs. And why is it so challenging for all of those to work together? Well, I came to think that within a government, various institutions are responsible for these different meteorology, hydrology, and disaster risk management. And it seems that sometimes they are struggling from a king and queen syndrome. It feels like they feel their department is like the main element, the key element in solving early warning, and all the other departments are serving them. And if you think like that, then collaboration is really difficult. So what we need to do is to stop thinking like this and to see that it's actually all elements are equally important, and we really need to bring them together to make this work. And in practice, what we often see is that different governmental institutions are even battling over where the warning system will be placed. Because having that system in your department does not only bring more budget, but also more power. And this is, I think, one of the key challenges for collaboration. But these kings and queens, they live in Babylon. Because they don't speak the same language. When you have a meteorologist talking about impacts, they mean totally different things than a disaster risk manager. And to have them collaborate, they really need to go and sit together at the table and to start really understanding each other. And I know this may sound cheesy and we hear it all over this Stockholm Watcher Week, but it is important because as a modeler, you need to think of what your response agent needs in terms of information, and the other way around. Last syndrome we are seeing is the farmer syndrome, because as a farmer, you have worked hard to harvest your crops. The same goes with data and models. We are talking about data sharing, and it's not only a technical issue. It is also an issue of recognizing that developing proper models and data costs money. And if you spend your budget, then why share it for free? And that needs an overarching policy that this data sharing is in place. Ramesh also mentioned it. Now what I want to show is a video. And this is a video about a project to bring something practical to the table. It's not a project in which everything is solved, but at least it's a project that tries to integrate all the different disciplines. And earlier Eva mentioned from satellite to sandbag. Actually, both words are in the video, so I hope this gives a nice overview of the whole chain. In many cities in Africa, when it rains heavily, we have severe floods within hours. The same thing happened in Dirdawa in Ethiopia in 2006. The floods came at night and no one expected it. 240 people died.
Accurate and timely forecasting of urban flood saves lives. They are, however, very hard to predict, and the reason is that urban floods strike suddenly and are characterized by very local and intense convective rainfall events. Conventional weather models are often too coarse and struggle to predict these rainfall triggers for urban floods. The solution for us is to use satellite data that covers the whole of Africa every 15 minutes.
Having such satellite-based rainfall estimates over all of Africa on such a high time resolution makes short-term forecasting possible. And this information is crucial because it determines where rainfall events will be that can trigger flash floods, where this was not possible before.
We develop a flood model for the city that computes very fast and at high detail. In order to improve the model, the Dirdawa administration collected data about the most important drains in the city.
In the last workshop in April 2024, our partners expressed interest in learning how to create these models. And in response, we started holding training sessions every 2 weeks.
But forecasts alone are not enough. That's where the Red Cross comes in. We turn forecasts into early action, anticipatory action, making sure communities are ready before the floodwater rise. When warning shows where the flood may strike, the Red Cross acts. Sandbags are filled, supplies are pre-positioned, and volunteers are ready to protect the most at-risk families.
The project is still ongoing. Whenever it rains in Dirdawa, we receive a message from our partners with the timing and the impacts of the rain. In this way, we can validate our models even without formal observations. Many cities face these type of floods. We hope to apply this method in more cities to take our steps towards early warning for all.
So very nice movie, thank you. So now we want to talk about tailor-made solutions, which is something you advocate for. And I think we have one Mentimeter prepared as well for that. But maybe you can, yeah, so while the people are adding, so the question is, where do we use one-size-fits-all solutions, blueprint solutions, where we should be having a more tailor-made approach. So please add it to the Mentimeter, and maybe while you're doing, Doreen, you can add a bit on that as well already, on why do we need tailor-made solutions?
Yeah, so maybe at the risk of becoming a queen now, because I'm by background a modeler, and I think modeling is actually a key element in early warning, but I just shared that we all think we are queens. But yes, what we see with now the increasing attention for early warning is that a lot of efforts are being made to make continental data or even global data available, and I think that that's a great way forward, but at the same time we must recognize that it's very difficult to make forecasts without taking the local conditions into account. This is what you saw in the video as well, especially if you have a city. Every city is different, and at that scale you really need to go into the field and see what's happening there. So there's no simple approach of having one model that fits all if you want to do really forecasting good. So it also comes with recognizing that developing this costs effort. And it's important to improve your forecast.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think people are getting a bit tired because we don't see any local issues. But maybe, okay, here it's coming. And then maybe Martijn can also add to the discussion. But what do you think, Doreen, when reading this? How risk information always has a local aspect. Different hazards strike different locations. So what do you think?
Yeah, so it's in every location you have different hazards, but also the impacts of these hazards are different. If you have a densely populated area, obviously heavy rainfall might have much more effects than somewhere else. And also, even if you plan your response, in one area it may be possible to evacuate people, but in another area you might put everyone in a traffic jam, and that will have disastrous effects. So really making all your plans from forecasting to your response strategy tailored to the local situation is critical.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, very important point. So, what else is said? So,
yeah, I see. I can comment.
Yeah, perfect.
Online.
I didn't see you, but
I'm still there. I'm still
yes,
with you all.
very happy.
I think an interesting one is also the population's capacity and behavioral adaptation. I know an example in the UK where there was a river that would get flooded 2 or 3 times a year, with a house getting flooded. But just in advance of the flooding, the local people living there in that community, they received a warning message, moved their furniture upstairs, and then 2 days later they cleaned their house, moved everything down again when the flood resided. And I think that's also a way to deal with flood, like just accept that the flood is there as long as you receive your timely warning, but also ensuring that people can adapt their behavior. I think another one, different types of floods, definitely important. Flash floods have locally a complete different effect than large spread riverine floods. And false alarms, of course, that's a very good comment as well.
Yeah, maybe we can. We will have a panel discussion later here, and we maybe can talk a bit about the false alarms. But for now, I want to really thank you, Doreen, and please give her a warm applause. And we will go to our last pitch. So please welcome Stefania Giordini. She is the head of the Water Climate Environment Unit at the Netherlands Red Cross, and she will share her perspective on how to really have inclusive flood early warning. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the introduction and dramatic entrance, because all these interesting sessions happen at the same time. But lovely to be able to be here and speak with you. So, inclusive early warning system. When I talk in a number of forums about early warning system, a comment that I hear very often is, why are you here talking again about early warning system? It's done, right? If you listen to the summary of the last disaster report from UNDR, it says that 50% of the world already has early warning system. So when I pitch early warning system to a donor or to interested people, they say, well, this is not the issue anymore. 50% is already done. what does it mean, done? Even if you have the perfect early warning system, able to predict perfectly with very small false alarm floods, very good messages sent out, what happens then? Many times, actually, this fantastic prediction is on the governmental website. How many people have actually access to that? And now you don't have to think about South Sudan because I'm from the Red Cross, so it's like, oh, she's talking about some small community in Africa. No, I'm talking about Germany. In Germany in 2021, many people didn't get the message. If in Germany many people didn't get the message, imagine what happens when you move to South Sudan. So, first of all, inclusive early warning system, the message has to reach the people that have to act. And it doesn't always happen. So, the work is not finished, the work is just started. And it's exciting that at the national governmental level, we are able to have good system, good predictions, and a lot of knowledge institutions that can actually improve a forecast. Fantastic. Now let's focus on having those messages going out to everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone, because this is where the Red Cross comes in. We leave no one behind. So it's not only, 40 years old with a smartphone, it's also my 92 years old grandma. It's also people with disability that are not able to move upstairs all the furniture. So this kind of inclusive systems have to be in place. Timing is important. Warnings not only have to reach the last mile, the last meter actually now, we think about the last meter, but they also have to give enough time for responding. And now I'm thinking about flash floods. Flash floods, they don't give you enough time for responding. I mean, if you have a warning, it's really a few hours. Should we get depressed? Absolutely not, because we can actually continue working together in the same way as we are doing already in Early Warning for All initiative, in Water at the Heart of Climate Action within the Global Water Agenda, in the projects that we have together. We just have to start looking at inclusivity. So, co-design, communities and people that need to act involved from the beginning. They need to tell you how, when, and to which channel they need to receive messages and how they can act. Integration. Stop fragmentation in early warning system. Stop creating your own early warning system. Let's figure out what are the national platform and then add to those. This is actually not only me asking you that, it's governments now. Innovation. It's fantastic to work together with the Deltares and our knowledge institution because we need to keep on improving forecast to give more time for people to act. Concrete example of this, all the speakers in this panel are actually working together exactly on this topic. We now have a large program, specifically for urban flooding. We together contribute to the objectives of Water at the Heart of Climate Action. We together contribute to the Global Water Agenda. So this is an example of collaboration. We just have to continue to stay in this fantastic water community. And always remember, when you're working on early warning system, think about, are they reaching the community? Do they know how to act? And are we actually including everyone? How do you do that? Reach out to your local Red Cross or to the Red Cross in the countries where you work. And then you will have a fantastic conversation on how to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think very important to reach, please stay on stage because we have some questions for the room and the people online who are still joining. So we, of course, as you talked about, we do not want to leave anyone behind. So what blind spots are we not aware of? So please let us know because we cannot see them. So I'm very interested to hear, and maybe Martijn, you're already seeing something on the Mentimeter. And Stefania, in the meantime, what do you think are often blind spots?
Well, Unfortunately, when looking at early warning system, it's not something that we can have 80% right and forgetting 20% of the population.
Yeah.
So really think about who cannot move their furniture upstairs.
Right.
Number one. Number two, it's about having all the stakeholders at the table at the from the beginning. And right now, working in initiatives like Water at the Heart of Climate Action, which is the largest commitment to the Dutch government, to the global water agenda, where we have been told you cannot do it by yourself. You have to do it with all the relevant UN organizations and with all the stakeholders. We really realize how large is the stakeholder base you need to have. The other thing is that improvements in forecast, they only go as fast as improvement in data. So that's why initiatives like the Scientific Observation Facility is very important, also to add a land observation facility to the satellite information that we have. This is not done by us, it's done by the UN office. Yeah. But this is really important because it's part of the public good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So while we talk about getting the data in, we're getting the data in. And hopefully, Martijn, you can comment on that.
Yeah, so from the online audience, I see some interesting things. People having no means of transportation. Yeah, you can receive a warning message, but if you cannot move to another location, that's definitely I think an issue that we should all be aware of. I think another part that is definitely important is see it also here, awareness campaigns is to ensure that people know what to do when they receive a warning message. I mean, receiving a warning message is one thing, but also knowing what to do next is another. And yeah, people who are not in official records and undocumented immigrants. I think that's another blind spot that we could also focus on.
Yeah, very important. You want to add a last comment on that?
So, absolutely. So when you say no means of transportation, it's because you are assuming everybody wants to evacuate from their location. But many people do not want to live. Many people cannot live, and many people do not want to live. So that's something that I always try to advocate. When you look at early warning and the actions, do not only think about evacuation. I had actually in my slide, it's too fast, but I have the set of early actions that actually come from one of our latest projects. They were devised by one of the partners. They were all about leaving your house. And our added value was to remind them, many people cannot or do not want to leave the house. They also need to have actions to stay safe.
Yeah, thank you for that. Very interesting point, I think. So please give Stefania a warm applause. And you can stay here because I'm going to invite all panelists on stage that are here on site, and then we can have Ramesh and Martijn also online, because we've heard from everybody individually, but let's now bring you together and see how this works. So we have a final Q&A for our panelists, and you can add also who you are directing the question to. So please, Stefania, come back onto the stage. Frank, Doreen, James, welcome. So while people are maybe asking their questions to you via the Mentimeter, and thank you for that, thank you for your active presence, can I ask you to give, if people are going home or going for beer or maybe for the Josh water party, but what one take-home message should they remember? Maybe we can ask you, James, and then we'll follow the line.
Right. My take-home message would be that the creation of the early warning system should include everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Stefania, what should people really remember? Please, yeah. Go ahead.
You've already given a very good one. Then I will move. Early warning systems do not stop at the system. You have to think about the whole value chain. So think about how the message can reach people and which actions people should take.
Wonderful. Doreen.
Yes, and then in order to know this, you need all the different expertises that are here on stage, but even beyond this, I think. So really collaborate and recognize your own limitations.
Frank.
I think we need to think beyond projects for flood early warning systems.
Yeah. And Ramesh, you also have a take-home message for us.
Yes, I think for me it's more about, there are different kinds of flood and different scales. So we need to have a specific or tailored strategy in terms of monitoring them. So it's a very important thing. And I was saying that we have early warning for all initiative, but I think to achieve that, it's early warning with all or by all. So we need to come together to do that, yeah?
Thank you. So Martijn, to give you the floor, are there any interesting questions from the people in the audience?
Yeah, so I see more questions coming up. I think an interesting one is, how do we ensure that communities don't become overly dependent on flood alerts and still maintain local preparedness and traditional knowledge?
So who do you think that question is for? Maybe Stefania?
Yeah.
Yes, so a couple of points here. So first of all, people will not be overly depending on flood alerts if you involve them from the beginning. Because the first thing that will happen is that they will want to integrate local method and local knowledge. So they actually, don't worry, they know what they're doing. So they have their own system. They know that you may disappear at some point. So, and the really important thing here is to involve the community from the beginning. I mean, if you're targeting a certain population, just make sure that you don't only want to inform them, you don't want to consult them, you want to really sit down at the table at the beginning of your project or initiative, if you go beyond project, and ask them, how can we do this together? How can this support what you already have in place? Don't underestimate the local capacity.
Yeah, thank you for that. So Martijn, you have another question?
Yeah, here's a technical question, so maybe most suitable for Doreen. But how do we speed up numerical simulations for early warnings of flash floods to be available in due time?
Well, I don't want to dive too deep into computational aspects, but maybe it's also related to the question that's just below there, which is asking what's the future of AI in FUSE? Because when we look at the short-term rainfall forecast, for example, we are moving towards AI, which is definitely speeding up with respect to the numerical weather forecasts. So that is one of the directions you would go. And you see the same development in flood forecasting. So I do see that as one of the ways. And yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Martijn, you have another question.
Yeah, so here's one for James. So how can we evaluate population and economic factors, and what is the importance of doing so for risk mitigation?
Yeah, it is important to understand the people who need to respond and take actions when these issues and events happen. So it is important that we do this evaluation on a regular basis to understand the kind of population movements, migration, and all those issues together, so that when there is a flood or there is the risk, there is something that is happening, you know which actions and which actual support that is required. Just like we mentioned, that it is not only about moving the people, but there are people who may need support right where they are. So that dynamics needs to be understood. Then we can actually give the necessary actions when the flooding or the risk happens.
Yeah, very, very clear. I think we have time for one last question.
So then maybe one for Frank or any other panelist is, so I see here we need bigger budgets for FUSE all over the world. What is a sustainable finance model? I
think it's a very difficult question to answer now. We don't know yet what a sustainable finance model will be. There are a lot of business models that are being tested. But like I said, if we invert the process and look at the resources that a community has and what they are able to sustain, then we build an early warning system within their budget and within their context, instead of having very sophisticated systems that they cannot maintain because they don't have the people, they don't have the resources. So these are things that we still need to think about.
Thank you. So before we are going to close this session, I'm of course very interested to know, what have you learned? What do you take away from this session? So we have one final Mentimeter question on this. Yeah, so what are your own ideas and key takeaways from today? So you can give them to the panel, they can implement them, but yeah, let us know. So hopefully you have learned some new things. And while we wait, is there anything you want to add to these discussions, or maybe you have learned something yourself as well in this session?
Well, I would like to say that governments also need to have really greater commitment in sort of supporting the funding of early warning system. Often this is missing, even though we've been talking about it. So I don't know how we're going to really get them to commit more to support early warning systems, but it's crucial to get them also on the table. Development partners are great. We know that they'll keep on helping, but the governments themselves also need to play a very, very critical role, and they cannot shed that roles.
Yeah, thank you. So Martijn, what are you seeing online happening?
Yeah,
online
I see some nice comments. I think one person is commenting cooperation is key, like in this great session. So thanks, thanks for that. Really, I also really surprised with how well everything went. Insight and impact and communication. Yeah, so warning is one thing next to support. I think that's very good comments. And local knowledge and technical issues are crucial. And yeah, I think the reminder that early warning systems are a process beyond projects, just as Frank addressed before.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful takeaways. I'm very happy with that. And so let me close this session, but first I really want to thank the panel that is up here. So give them a warm applause. James, Stefania, Doreen, Frank. But then, of course, also our speakers online. Ramesh, please give them a warm applause. But especially Martijn, thank you for moderating online. It was wonderful.
So, Liesbeth, huh?
Yeah.
Putting together all this.
Yeah, thank you. And let me maybe summarize this session. So I think it's as we started this session talking about how much money can be saved, and I think it's worthwhile to mention it's worth to invest in early warning systems, that are sustainable, inclusive, and effective. And I think together with good stakeholder management, we can manage that. So with that, I wanted to give you the link to LinkedIn, where we will do a follow-up. Maybe Doreen will share the video, and hope to see you online to further take steps in this topic. So thank you so much for being here on site and online, and goodbye.